Well, welcome back to Toyota Sports Talk. We continue to cover the Dan Snyder situation in terms of selling the team. There's so many different layers now, and a new report by ESPN talking about this $55 million loan. And we have the writer of that story, ESPN's Don Van Natta, joining us. Don, really appreciate your time. Well done on the story. I know it was a complex, complicated story, but you made it read easy for us viewers and consumers here. Let's start with kind of the basis of the story and take me through kind of the sourcing and the story process and the layout, because there was a lot to it.
Yeah, there is. So we start the story really with this $55 million credit line that Dan Snyder took out in December of 2018. And the fact that his three partners at the time, who owned 40% of the team, knew nothing about it. They never approved it, and they had no knowledge of it until they happened to see a footnote 16 months later in a financial report that showed that the team had taken out this $55 million credit line. And we've discovered that this is now an area of inquiry for federal prosecutors in the Eastern District of Virginia at the U.S. Attorney's Office as part of the criminal investigation looking into alleged financial misconduct by the Washington Commanders.
So from a fan's perspective, because, in this town in Washington, I feel like they're, in a sense, they're becoming immune to all these different allegations, all these different reports. It's a lot to take in from a Commanders fan's perspective. Why should they care about this particular allegation in your story?
Well, I think it's because the former partners who owned 40% of the team with Snyder and who sold about 2 years ago, Snyder now owns the entire part of the team. They made allegations that Snyder was using the Commanders as his personal piggy bank, that he was inventing ways to take cash out of the team and put in his pocket. And these are new allegations. We've never seen them before. They come out of confidential documents, including an NFL arbitration petition that the partners had submitted to the NFL. I think the reason why it's important for fans is, will it affect, first of all, Dan Snyder's future, but also the future sale of the Commanders? As we know, Snyder has the team on the market. He's accepting bids. And the question is whether or not these very serious allegations now being considered by prosecutors could impact the sale of the team.
So from a Commanders fan's perspective, Don, all they care about is, when will this sale go through? When will Dan Snyder, hands clean, walk away, bye-bye Dan Snyder? That's what they care about right now. So with this report, these allegations, does this speed up the sale of the Commanders, or do you think, in a sense, this could slow it down, bog it down a little bit?
Well, it certainly is going to raise some questions for anybody who wants to buy the team. And I think anyone who wants to buy the Commanders are going to want to look very carefully at the books if they're not already doing it. But I'm not so sure it's going to slow it down. I think there's a momentum to this right now. I believe that Snyder is selling the team in part because there's a lot of debt owed to Bank of America, not just the credit line we reported, but he took out a $450 million loan to buy out those partners 2 years ago. And so paying the interest on those loans is very high. But I expect the sale to still go forward with quite a bit of momentum, despite the reporting in our new piece today on ESPN.com.
In your article on ESPN.com, Don, you kind of laid it all out for us. You told us what happened. So what are the next logical steps with your story, with these allegations? What happens next? How does this story, these allegations, end?
Well, I believe, and I know for sure that in the Eastern District of Virginia, this criminal investigation is intensifying. They have subpoenaed, the prosecutors there, documents that I was able to obtain, including this NFL arbitration petition. I think there will be additional subpoenas coming out. And so the investigation there is ongoing and will continue. But where it goes from here with the NFL, there's an owners meeting at the end of March. Certainly the feeling around the league is most of the owners want Snyder out, want him to sell. And it'll be interesting to see how the owners react to the revelations in our story today when the owners meet next month.
So we talk about the Dan Snyder side of your story, but I think there's also an NFL side of the story. Have they turned a blind eye to a bunch of this stuff revolving Dan Snyder, or kind of protected their own shield in a sense?
It certainly appears that way. So the limited partners asked an NFL arbitrator at the end of 2020 to put together a summons and send it to Bank of America to figure out what documentation there was for Snyder to obtain this $55 million credit line that he didn't tell his partners about. Within 4 days of that request, the arbitrator said, we're going to end the arbitration and move this to mediation if you, the partners, agree. They grudgingly agreed, but a source told me from the partners' perspective, it felt to them as if the NFL, the arbitrator, Commissioner Roger Goodell, and the lawyers sided with Snyder over them.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It's a question I wanted to ask Roger Goodell. He declined to speak with me for this story. We had a story last October that Snyder has told people, including some fellow owners and others, that he has dirt through private investigators that he's dug up on fellow owners as well as on Commissioner Goodell. I don't know if that's part of the reason, but look, we saw it happen with the Beth Wilkinson investigation. There was no final report there. And this timeline is very similar. While Beth Wilkinson is doing her investigation, the partners are asking the NFL arbitrator to investigate these allegations of financial misconduct against Snyder. And we've had sources tell us the NFL was not interested.
You know, as an investigative journalist, you have to make sure you dot all of your I's, cross all your T's, a lot of kind of massaging of the story, making sure everything's right. How long did something like this take you? Because this is, people think this, you just roll this out, in one night, but this is weeks and weeks of probably work, right?
It is. We broke the story on November 2nd of last year that prosecutors in the Eastern District of Virginia were investigating the Commanders. And shortly after that, I started looking very carefully at what they were looking into. And that work led to getting a lot of documents. Quite a few of them are confidential, and building this story. So I was at it for about 4 months.
Amazing work as always, and we certainly appreciate your time and kind of your insight and perspective on this well-written piece. Again, you can read it on ESPN.com. Don Van Natta, ESPN. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate you.
Much more to come right here on Toyota Sports Talk. Stay with us.